Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the gallery. And today we're here to honor and celebrate Nengi Omuku, our artist here. The title of the show is Stages of Collapse. So if you haven't had an opportunity, please make sure that you walk around and see the beautiful work of art. And also, if you get a chance to spend time with Nengi, please do, because she leaves tomorrow. So hello, Nengi. Welcome to the gallery. It's an honor to have you here. And for those that don't know, my name's September Gray, and I'm September Gray of September Gray Fine Art Gallery. So I welcome you to the gallery, and I'm glad you could join us. Last night was the opening, and it was a wonderful, wonderful opening. A lot of great reviews. People love the work, and you sold a couple of pieces, so congratulations. And we're glad to have you here. Today, we want to celebrate Nengi also because this is her first U.S. solo show. Yes. And we're so proud. Yes? So, here in Atlanta at September Gray Fine Art Gallery. So if you haven't seen it, please make sure you just broadcast it, let people know that she's here. The work's up until November the 5th. And please let them know to come and see the work. It's quite beautiful. So the title of the show, Nengi, is Stages of Collapse. The first thing I want to talk about before we talk about the show, I want to talk about you. Tell us a little bit about where you're from, how you basically decided to become an artist, and how this journey started.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for hosting this show. September was introduced to me by Culverley. Culverley managed my work in the States and in the States basically, and I got a call from them once saying that they'd seen my work online and they loved the work and they wanted to push it in the US, and so they introduced me to September, and September graciously welcomed me to her gallery. So I want to thank both you and Culverley for this opportunity. I'm really grateful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I've completely forgotten your question now. What did you ask me?
No, I want to hear about your background.
Okay,
Tell us your story, right?
Yes, brilliant. Well, I was born in Nigeria. I lived with my family in Nigeria for a while, up until I was 16. And then I decided I wanted to be an artist and moved to England when I was, 16, and did my A-levels and got into the Slade School of Fine Art. It's the art department of UCL. And then I did my bachelor's.
Now, if you don't mind, I want to stop you there. Slade School of Fine Art, I want you to tell the audience, and I don't want to misquote, that you were the second Nigerian artist to be accepted kind of in a 50-year time span at the Slade School of Fine Art in London. Well, and I think that's remarkable.
The first artist that went there was Ben Enwowu. Yes. I think he's called the greatest painter we've had in Nigeria. He was really prolific, and he was a fantastic painter. So it was really an honor for me to get accepted in there. I had my eye on that school since I was in secondary school in Nigeria, and I always wanted to go there. So getting into the school was a dream come true for me. So I did my bachelor's there, and then I went on to do a master's in arts there as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Now also, when you talk about the school and Ben, are there other influences that you had in your life becoming an artist, or artists that influenced your work, or it could be people in your life? What were the biggest influences for your work?
Well, I think artistically, I sort of started producing my work in isolation. I wasn't really looking outside, I was always looking in. I was always sort of trying to pull from within myself. But when I came across Wangechi Mutu's work, that immediately struck a chord in me. And I think she's a fantastic artist, and also artists like Christophili, Yinka Shonibare, those artists, I felt like I could relate to what they were saying. We may not be doing what we're doing the same way, but I relate to what they're saying and how they're saying it.
I love that. I noticed that a lot of artists, normally it's a reflection of them or what's going on in society. Now, when you say that, what are other themes that you like to pursue? If you want to start with Stages of Collapse or another theme, but what are a lot of themes that you like to pursue in your work?
I think because I'm a woman, I sort of tend to see things from my perspective, because that's the perspective I have. So I think I portray things clearer from my viewpoint and other women's viewpoints, especially I think also other black women. There isn't really I think the work, you can relate to it from different angles. You don't have to be a black woman to relate to my paintings, but I think that's the viewpoint I come from when I'm painting. And I think themes of childbirth, fertility, what it means to live in our skin, I think those are things that inspire my work in general.
I love it. Now, I'm looking at the piece behind us, and I love this piece. Tell us a little bit about this piece, so we can understand your process and the influence behind this piece, so it'll give us an idea of the other pieces in the room. If you could just expound on this for us a little bit.
Well, this one's called Pull. And I really enjoyed talking to people who came into the show yesterday, because people that's one thing I like about abstract paintings. People can come at it with their own perspective and own experience. But for me, where it came from was I was thinking about two bodies that were trying to separate from each other. But one is sort of standing static and sturdy and firm, and the other is literally bending over backwards trying to pull away. And it's part my struggle between abstraction and figuration and representation. In one part of me, I'm an abstract painter, and another part, I'm a figurative painter. And these things are sort of trying to pull away, but are conjoined by a shared experience. So that's where it comes from. And again, an underlying theme in this is childbirth. So every time you see like an orb or something coming out from the center, it's referring a birthing process or something dripping out of a form. It's referencing birth.
Yes. I love that. I love that. That is beautiful. Now, I'm looking at this piece, and you're talking about birth and childbirth, and I remember reading your artist statement, and you also talk about how we tend to try to, when we're in society, we're trying to fit or mold, and mentally and physically to fit within our society and the environment we're in. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of pressure on women. Like, I'm sure men have their own pressure, and I'm not trying to be, but we have there's a lot of pressure on women to sort of be a certain way. For example, you could have a debate, and this is just a random example I'm giving. You can associate it with whatever you like, but you could have a debate, for example, and they would be analyzing what the man was saying and what the woman was wearing. So, and you're thinking, what are we talking about right now? This is not how that's meant to be. So I think there are a lot of pressures on women, and I think also where I come from in Nigeria, women are still regarded as second-class citizens. We're not seen at the same level as men. Sometimes people expect you. It's not for everyone. Sometimes people expect you to sort of be just fit into the mold of the good housewife. That is just keeping the house clean. And there's nothing wrong with being a housewife, but they just want you to be in that mold. So I guess some of the things I'm trying to say refer to the issues women face and how we're being treated in society.
I love that. I love that. Let me ask you, as an artist, what are the things in your work that you've kind of been difficult for you, but have helped develop you as an artist? Do you think anything that you've gone through that's been very difficult, but it's helped you develop as an artist?
Yes. Well, when I moved to England for the first time, I went to do my A-levels in a small town in the south.
Now, for those of us that don't know what A-levels are, what are your A-levels?
So like when you're 16, you do 2 years of, it's sort of like pre-university? Yeah? Okay. So 2 years of, so it's like you do if you're an art student, you do 4 art courses, or if you're a science student, you do 4 science courses to prepare you for university. So I did that in a really small town, and I guess a lot of them had never seen, or in real life, a black person. So I went to the school, and a lot of people were asking me things like, oh, back in Africa, do you live in a tree? Do you ride camels, you know? And I was like, I've never seen a camel actually before, you know? So like, how have you assumed that a camel is part of my daily experience? But I wasn't really so upset. I was kind of more understanding that these people are actually not as exposed as I am to the rest of the, you know, to the rest of the world. So that was how, in my head, I started forming ideas about identity and difference and how people of different sort of types relate to each other when they meet each other. So it was a difficult phase for me in my life, but it's sort of become the core of my artistic practice. Yeah,
helping people understand who you are, and that there's many ways of being as a woman, not just one dimension. I love that. What has been the best advice you've ever had or received regarding your art as an artist?
Well, I think it was in this stage when you were sort of trying to find yourself and say, oh, what do I want to talk about? What outside is there that I want to talk about, or what political issue do I want to comment on? And a tutor came to me and said, you have to pull from within yourself first, and it will resonate with the outside as long as it's coming from within yourself. I think that was the best.
I think we could use that in life, pulling from inside, you know. Pulling what's real. I want to ask you about a couple of comments that I got last evening during the opening. One was the Japanese influence. A couple of people noticed there was certain stance, the way the figures kind of projected or kind of held their positions, and the hairstyles was influenced a little bit by Japanese style. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I have many Asian friends. Some of my closest friends are Asian, and one of my best friends actually is Asian.
Was this intentional?
No, it wasn't. It's very subconscious. Yeah, definitely very. Yesterday was the first time that someone had. He mentioned it to me as well.
Right.
And you know, it just occurred to me that probably. That you know, there was some sort of subconscious, you know, imprint in my mind. But I've always admired their culture, their calligraphy, and how they express themselves with so little. I think it could just be a stroke. It's very minimal. It could just it could just be a stroke, and it's just so powerful, and it says so much. So I definitely admire their culture, and you know. I
love that. Being here, you've been here for about a month now, and do you come often to the U.S.? Or is this one or two trips? Have you been here many times before, or?
I'd say 3 or 4 times. I have a brother that lives here.
Okay.
and so I have a brother that lives here, but so I come once in a while to visit. But I've exhibited in New York. Last year, and so I don't come as often as I'd like to.
Hopefully you'll come more often. I always like to ask artists this question because I'm curious about their response. As an artist, do you want to be known for your skill set, your technique, meaning in work, inspiration to others, love of creating, being relevant, being famous, which can have many meanings, or all of the above?
I would say inspiration to others, because if, you know, I don't expect paintings to change the world. You know, I'm very realistic, sort of. But I would say that if, you know, looking at one of my paintings can give you a new perspective on you know, on your everyday, that would be everything to me.
That's beautiful. I love that. I have another quick question. Do you remember the first work that you ever sold, and what was that feeling like?
That was, yes, I do. And I think I cried. Yeah, it was like, you know, yes. It was like I was cutting a limb. It was a very small painting. And I remember, I'm still in touch with the person that bought it. It was during my bachelor's. It's a small painting, and he bought two paintings. But that particular one was very important to me. It was a painting of, it was just when I was moving into abstraction, of a woman and her baby was sort of, you know, being born and flying. It was very early.
I love that. So, yeah. I love that. I love that. I love it. Well, I love the work. I love that the theme is women, women issues, childbearing, because, you know, I think that we are the center and the soul and the heartbeat of this universe, because without women, none of us would be here, right? So I love your themes. But tell me, what's next for you? What projects are you working on next? What can we expect to see from you next, Nengi?
Yes, well, I have, I'm showing in London next week, and next month I have 2 shows in Nigeria. So that's what's happening, what's happening with me. So it's work.
Which is exciting.
Yes, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to resting after though, because I'm really exhausted. But but
in a good way.
In a good way, in a beautiful way. I like being this kind of exhausted. So then next year I'm hoping to come back to the States for a new project. I will let you all know what that project is.
Well, you're delightful. I love your work.
Well, I love you. You're so amazing.
I love you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now I want to open it up for Q&A.
Yes.
If anyone has any questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, hello.
Greetings, hello.
Hello.
I'm going to ask
No problem.
you 3 questions. Where in Nigeria are you?
I'm from River State. So it's south. Yes, hold on. Yeah, south. Yeah.
How much of Africa, given the time you left, I know there's a lot that shaped and formed your perspective.
Yeah.
And it still lives within you. How much of that is informing your work?
Well, I would say a lot of Nigeria is still informing my work. Like, a lot of the paintings here are inspired by women I see walking along the streets. Before, when I was in England, my work was still coming totally and only from within myself. But when I moved to Nigeria, my work, I think, became less selfish. And I started pulling from women's stories. And for me, moving back to Nigeria was when I started focusing on the face of in the paintings. You can see it's sort of an amorphous, changing face. It's not a distinct face, because I wanted to be anybody and it could be everybody. So that's what Nigeria did for me. Yeah.
Can I have it?
Sure, yes, please.
Given the influence still Africa or Nigeria in particular, how much of your work would you say is accepted in the larger art world? Are they trying to narrowly define you as an African artist or a Nigerian? Because you're taking things of all of Africa as one city or state.
Yeah.
But all of that being in you, are you being channeled narrowly into African art?
Yeah.
As to be artificially defined.
Yes.
While at the same time it's very relevant to everything.
Yes, that's a beautiful question, because I was worried that when I moved back to Nigeria, that people would sort of say, oh, why are you painting like this, and why can't it be more African, why can't you paint like more African themes, But Nigeria is so, especially Lagos, is so international that if you did try and force an African theme on your viewers, they would be like, what are you doing? They would not have it, basically. So I feel so free when I'm in Nigeria making work, especially in Lagos, making work, to be who I really am. And who I really am is, I have influences from Nigeria, and I was also heavily influenced from when I was in London. And I have to be honest with myself and merge those experiences and, say that in paintings. Yeah.
And your use of red in our art.
Yes, red. It's.
I think you may have answered it.
my use of it's just such a powerful color. I'm just so drawn to it. I can't say that I have like a logical explanation for why I use red. Yes, it could be, yeah. But these colors, definitely I see them as quite feminine. I think many women can relate to these colors for many reasons. But yes, so, yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Speaking on that, I wanted to ask you to speak more about this piece. Look at the piece, it's very super feminine, there's a lot of feminine energy. What inspired this piece?
Well, I was thinking about the meeting between a female and male form. So on the left-hand side, you have this very female form, and that's sort of bleeding out into the space of the male form. I saw the male form as sort of more strict lines and rigidity. It's because I'm not a woman. So this is from my perspective, how I'm painting men. So please don't judge me. But So I have this woman that's sort of fluid and amorphous and changing, and then this very strict linear man on one side. So she's sort of expressing herself and flowing into his space, and he's like, what? So that's where that comes from. Yeah.
I love this. This was actually the first piece I saw of your work when I decided I've got to meet this artist and we've got to do a show. This was the first piece.
Thank you.
May I follow that question up? You have indicated, even last night, that you don't always expect men to understand or appreciate your work. You didn't say it quite that way. Being a man, clearly your work is influenced and focused and inspired by by women's experience, the female body, the challenges, and etc. But going back to her question, elaborate a little more on that piece, if you would, because as I shared with you, although I'm a man, I saw even more in that piece. I shared with you that I lost my mother at the age of 12 in February. And as you talked about some of the spaces in the female form there, you even mentioned that a lot of it, well, first of all, obviously the color palette, you are pulling from that, the birthing process. Obviously, but for me, that was very personal. The blood, candidly. I see other things I won't necessarily talk about, but talk a little bit more, if you would, about that piece, and I would just make a statement. I would ask you to know and appreciate that there are men who will appreciate you.
That's good to know. Because I've actually, the first solo show I did in Nigeria, some men walked in and they were like, oh, where is he? And I said, oh, sorry, where's who? Where's the artist? And I was like, I'm the artist. And they were like, but you're a small girl. They genuinely thought that it was a man that was making the work. So I think I underestimate the ability of men to feel the way that I think that women feel. And I'm always excited when I see that men relate to the work, and it's something that really touches me, because I don't want my work to just be for women. I don't want my work to just be for black people. I want my work to sort of reach. It's for everyone, really. And I'm glad that you can relate to it. Your story yesterday was really powerful and really touched me. Thank you for sharing that with me. Yes, sorry.
Yes, I noticed that many artists get influences by music. And I just wanted to know, what do you listen to music, and what type of music influences you as you're painting and you're speaking?
Well, usually I listen to techno. You're with me? Yeah? I listen to techno because it just has like a strong. I'm a violinist, not professional, so I do listen to a bit of like Karen Briggs, for example. She's a jazz violinist, but usually if I'm painting and I need to keep painting for long hours, I listen to techno. It keeps me going. So I wouldn't say music hasn't necessarily influenced my work. Music for me is a separate part, and art is a different thing as well. Yeah. I keep them separate. So Thank you.
I had a question for the piece. There's a piece, it's a text piece, which is very different than anything else in the show. And it says, I am here. And a lot of people gravitated towards that piece all evening. There was a lot of interesting conversations going on. Tell us about the influence on that piece and why you created it for this particular show. How does that fit in with Stages of Collapse?
It's really interesting that you read it as I am here, because it's actually I am not here.
I am not here.
I am not here. No. But it's sort of trying to tell, where it's coming from is it's saying basically your preconceived ideas about who I am are not present. Let me tell you who I am, basically. That's where it's coming from. It's saying, shed your thoughts about who I am, and let me tell you really who I am. So it's like a coming out. It's a coming out piece, and which is sort of what the exhibition is about.
You need to do another one, because I would like to buy a piece like that. I love that.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
So yeah, I've got one question. I'm curious about like this visual language that you develop within your work of like the floral, the vegetables, you know, this foliage. Yeah. When did that come about, and how did it come about? And talk a little bit about how you're using it within your work.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question, and it's so apt. I'll tell you, because I'm a florist actually, and I became a florist when I moved back to Nigeria. So this sort of also came from moving back to Nigeria. My mom is a florist. She's been a florist for over 25 years. And my studio is in her garden. So while I was there, because I'm an artist, she said, come, I'll train you on how to do flower arrangements. So for the past 5 years, she's been training me on how to be a florist. So the forms, I guess, are heavily influenced by my mother and her own practice. And I think my newfound love for flowers and that the texture that you can get from just gazing at a flower, and I guess it's the ultimate feminine symbol. But but it's not as strict as a flower would be. It's sort of soft and changing and shifting, which is what I think is a metaphor for the human experience. The human experience is always sort of subtly shifting and changing. So yeah, that's where it comes from. Yeah. Thank you.
I wanted to just piggyback off of the same piece, because you spoke about really releasing the preconceived notions. How does that relate to the notions within yourself you had to let go of?
Yes.
And the transformation process in that. Can you speak a little bit more direct on that? Because in this work is such a peeling back. And I imagine you've had experiences that were emotional, that were groundbreaking, that were fetal, that were birthing moments. Can you just take us into that process a little bit?
I don't know where you got these people from, but their questions, oh my goodness. What? Sorry. Yes, moving back to Nigeria again was a very challenging thing for me in terms of my practice, because of all the things I had received, especially when I was doing my A-levels, you could get some things like, do you live in a tree, things like this that aren't really positive comments about your person, your identity. They sort of affect you. So how I started finding myself artistically, I used to paint myself as an exotic bird with different wigs, colored wigs of different sort of hair textures, not dreads, not like an afro. So they would be either a straight wig or a very bouncy curly wig, and my whole body will be entirely cocooned in this multicolored feathered thing. So there was no arms, no legs, no identity. It was just a cocoon. So moving to Nigeria, I realized that I didn't need to be cocooned anymore. So I went through what I think is a period of shedding. So I had to shed all the feathers on all the cocoon basically had to drop. And this exhibition marks me coming out of that cocoon and sort of showing this multicolored floral creature and who she really is, and just telling people that she's willing to change and willing to adapt, and she's going to grow, basically. Yeah,
I appreciate that. A lot of what I take from it is that metamorphosis type of process, and somewhat of a detachment, if you will, from the human or the physical form into a very spiritual form. So I definitely appreciate that in the work, and I know just from viewing the work, you've been through some things. I think it's very poignant work for this time, because I feel like each of us, have the opportunity to have that type of transformation within ourselves, to look at what woman is and what those preconceived notions, and really, quite honestly, how do we perpetuate that oppression? Even to your point earlier about men feeling like, okay, well, this is, you do X and Y and Z, You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And how just even in that notion, is a perpetuation of that same, you know, type of oppression. I just really, I think it takes courage to really do this type of work and to really shed your skin and to really be able to talk about it in such a way. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Which one's your favorite?
Ooh. Oh my goodness. I think because they all came at very important. I think that the exhibition is about transitioning. So every single piece came at some point during the transition. So that one, for example, the one where you have the actual human form about to be engulfed by an abstract form, came at a point of where, just the tip where it was about to shift, where things were about to change. So that one was very important to me at a certain time. This was when they were pulling apart, the abstraction representation were pulling apart. And I guess the next one in there is when the first time you see the creature sort of completely come out of its shell as multicolored, multifaceted, and amorphous. So it's difficult to say which one is, and then everything else is birthed from that moment. So it's really difficult to say. Sure.
Okay, so what is your end goal? What would you consider success? What is your ambition?
I would say that there is no end, because for an artist, I think if you end, you basically die. So the thing is, I hope never to sort of stop. I hope never to arrive. I don't want to arrive. I just want to keep on this journey of finding myself, finding other people in my paintings, and relating to other people's stories through my work. And I want to keep evolving. I don't want to really ever get to a point where I say, yes, this is me, this is me, this is me, and it just being a static, yeah.
And I think you answered earlier, you want to be an inspiration to others.
Yes,
continually.
Yes, absolutely.
I think that's important.
Sure.
This work is very prolific. It has a lot of messages. And I can have some experiences of my own, but I can also get behind your intention through your lens. It's a lot of mysticism through my lens, which is very feminine cases. But do you have any sort of, does any of the animism or any of your faith inform this work?
Yes, that's another really good question. Yes, I'm Christian myself, and I grew up in a my dad is a priest, actually, an Anglican priest, and we went to Catholic schools all our lives. So although my dad is Anglican, he sent us to Catholic schools, so you were constantly seeing this image of Mary, and praying the rosary and things like that. So the first piece actually is the first one that actually shows a very distinct link with Christianity, I think, and because it shows this woman sort of levitating, basically, because she's not touching the ground. She's surrounded by clouds and lights. So that is a very direct link to Catholicism and Christianity, basically, and this notion of Mary, although in this case it's a black woman, and so that's sort of part of the link. And when I did start my journey into abstraction, I was looking a lot and reading up a lot about the aura emitted by a person, so that is another strong thing that goes into my work. I probably haven't researched as much as I should have about the aura, but that was a starting point for me. Yeah.
And that's probably going after.
Yeah.
To piggyback a little bit on what she said, I've noticed when we start looking at popular culture, we're starting to see, like, for example, Beyonce with Lemonade, using a lot of florals, pointing to Oshun and things that we have learned in our Yoruba culture. Can you speak a little bit about the history and how you identify history and women in history in your work, if that makes sense?
Women in history in my work. I think with my work, I'm sort of looking more at women now. I think what happened, and I don't share this often because I haven't found a way to share it. but since you've asked, a shift in my work was when I moved to Nigeria, I realized that there were a lot of mentally ill women on the streets, and that struck a chord in me. And sort of every painting here is sort of, most of the paintings, especially on this wall, are sort of honoring the women that I saw and the states in which I saw them when I was in Nigeria. So I don't say it often because I haven't found not good. I'm still figuring it out, basically. I'm still figuring it out. Maybe by the next exhibition I would have completely, but that's just sort of a background insider. Yeah.
Hi. This might be the one opportunity again to ask this, or to get you to answer this.
Yeah.
That one. Can you talk about where you were at and what that is about?
Yes, so this again relates to what Keish just asked. I saw a woman sort of pushing what seemed like all her belongings as she was walking on the street. And again, she had dreadlocks. So this is where so this is based on that woman I saw with all her things there. And that painting as well, All My Things, is also inspired by that. I saw her, another woman sitting with a cluster of things in front of her. So you have this sort of, in this yellow one, female form with a cluster of a collection of other forms in front of her. So that's where those two come from.
Is there any, going back to the spiritual piece, even just from a standpoint of having, Christian, but also growing up in Nigeria and the influence, you touched on it as well, as far as Ifa, that's kind of, it's embedded in the soil. So, like, how do you integrate that work?
Well, again, I was in Nigeria till I was 16, then moved to England, yes, for most of my adult life. So I think I may have missed out on a lot of like the traditional culture. Do you understand what I mean? And again, I'm not even Yoruba. So I missed out a lot on that traditional African traditional religion aspect. So I guess probably looking at the aura in school, writing essays about the intersection between religion and art was sort of me trying to sort of figure that out. Like, how does art relate in how does it relate to so it's still a process of me figuring all these things out.
Well, that's also the stereotype we have and the chronic misconception about Africa. How varied it is, and ethnicity, faith, and practice, and this is not anything more than our isolationism here as Americans, not really informed, but we think we're liberated or free. We haven't been informed, and I'm so grateful that the silos of separation are softening. Internet, say what you will, the information is coming to us, raising questions in us, pushing back on false narrative and so forth, and bringing us together more importantly. And this is a little more personal for me, which is the bridging between the continent and America. Though we have conversations where we want to talk about the United States of Africa, it's very, very different, very specific, on top of colonialism that even tries to separate ethnicities, share the same language, share the same grandfathers and grandmothers, but a nationalism is in there too that separates. It's very complex. Nigeria is a perfect example.
It is, absolutely,
of that variation. I'm grateful for this moment. I'm thanking you because more of these conversations are much bigger than the art.
Yes.
Very important stories.
No, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. No, thank you.
And I love that we've touched on so many points. We've talked about the spirituality of the work, the women issues, just the men issues, just being transparent in your life and your experiences in life when you've lived in London and in England. And I just love the whole aspect that these are human issues, whether we're in Nigeria, whether we're in America or London. I love it because we talk about it in a humanistic way. We all have issues dealing with mental illness. That's a huge issue, not just in Nigeria, but here in the US. And it's just, that's the whole point of what I do and why I do it. The mission here is art and ideas that reflect a visual conscience of the times that we live in. So I want to thank you for bringing this show. You're not just a great woman artist, you're not just a great Nigerian artist, you're a great artist, period. Your work is phenomenal, the themes are phenomenal, the meaning behind the work is phenomenal, and I hope you'll continue, Nengi, to do this and inspire us and have these conversations where we can engage. I think this is so important. I hope you've enjoyed this show and this artist talk, and I hope this will be the first of many that we'll do together, not just in Atlanta, but all over the world. I'm excited, I'm very proud of this work and proud to have you here. And I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
This is why I do what I do. But thank you, everyone, for coming and being here today. Again, Nengi Omuku, Stages of Collapse. It'll be up until November the 5th. Thank you.